Chasing the so-called American dream can be both a daunting and exhilarating prospect. But is the American dream the real goal? Does success equate to achieving the American dream? People define success differently, and the evidence of success can be debatable. My guests will examine the good, the bad, and peculiarity of what success is. My guests today include baby boomer Jenny Clark, author and CEO and founder of Fifth Dimension Leadership. Millennial Tyler Johnson, digital marketing consultant, and millennial Lee Smith, a law student. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining the table tonight. So let's just dive right in. You know, I really was looking for a definition. Merriam was no help. Actually, it was painfully disappointing. All Merriam says about success is just, it's a favorable outcome. Like, wow, that could be really anything, right? Mm-hmm. So what is your take on success? How would you fill in the blank, the trailing ... Success is, what do you think, Tyler?
I think it's different for everyone. Like you said, I think first it's looking inward and staying true to yourself and being able to measure based on what's authentic to you. Mm-hmm. That's immediately what I thought.
Gotta own it.
Yes, exactly.
Gotta own it.
I think success is a mix between having the freedom to do what you want, and then also success looks like, well, at least for me personally, is being able to like what you do and to have a little bit of passion about it, something to wake you up in the morning.
Especially if you gotta do it every day.
Right.
Day in and day out. Okay. Jenny, you've seen some success, right?
Yeah. As I think about it, I have. But it's kind of, it just keeps changing. Because I keep growing, my wants and needs shift. I find satisfaction in what I've done. I'm reflective, I'm introspective. But I think for me, a lot of it is about service now at this stage of my life. So it's everything else that these two have said. Plus, I want to find a way to be of service because it's less about money. It's more about knowledge and wisdom. To me, that's currency. And so to the extent that I can share that, that's gratifying. That's success for me.
So being able to drop some knowledge and some wisdom.
Yes,
you
indeed.
all gather it, we'll drop it as boomers. Is the quest for success a bit of idolatry? Can we be so focused on success that it just consumes everything, almost worshiping success? What do you think?
I think so. Just going from her answer, how it can shift and change throughout different, seasons of your life. Kind of, from my position, being a law student, I guess if I set my goal to getting a certain amount of clients or achieving a certain amount of success within a law firm, I could miss what's going on around me and miss that season of service or miss, just any type of success, like being able to go out and go for runs or ride bikes because I'm just so focused on this one thing. I think we get caught in the chase of that sometimes.
Okay.
I agree with that. Mine has definitely not been linear. I've had to course correct and pivot because at heart I'm a creative, but so the 9-to-5 job can really get in the way of some of that creativity because I'm trying to make sure that I do well day to day. My 9-to-5 job, it takes up a lot of my time, and sometimes I don't have the energy at the end of the day to delve into my creative side. So sometimes in terms of success from the outside looking in, sometimes like the roles that I've had within digital marketing, people would count that as success. But for me, if I'm going back to what I said earlier, being authentic to myself, I see success in addition being able to cultivate like those creative energies and being more successful that way. So for me, it's definitely just being able to pivot and still trying to find that balance of being able to make that money, do well at your 9-to-5, but then save time for the creative things you want to do that give you the most energy and passion at the end of the day.
You can definitely run you if you're not sort of running it. So finding time, you're both saying you need to find more time to do that, which really kind of replenishes you, right?
Exactly.
I also think I have a 27-year-old son, and so I'm watching this generation.
Yes. Yes.
And I think there are a couple dynamics as I watch him and sort of contrast it with what I went through. You know, my parents were my parents were born in the early 1900s. I mean, I'm in my 60s. They were older when they had me. And so their mindset was, you know, get a good job. A good job was to become a doctor, to work at the post office. I mean, so those were some orientations that we had, particularly as Black people.
Yep.
You know, my parents passed away when I was in my 30s. They were hugely influential in my early success. They got to see some of it, graduating from business school and taking, you know, going with these big name companies that I work for. And that looked like success to them, and that was gratifying to me. And I think sometimes when I look at my son too, I question the extent to which whose success are we chasing? Who are we trying to satisfy with success too? Because a lot of times and I watch so many people do this. As a recruiter, I've watched folks chase these big name jobs and, you know, and get them. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, they're chasing the brand and they're doing it for their families, for the money.
Yeah.
And they look up and they realize, you know, maybe they've had a heart attack. Maybe there's something catastrophic where their eyes are open and they say, I don't have joy. And I think joy factors into this. And who are you doing it for? And get off of that treadmill. And for the young folks, I'm sorry, but social media, I think, is a demon in this because there's all this imagery about what success looks like. And people are seeking to emulate that. And I think it's just a real dangerous, it can hurt your self-esteem considerably.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with
Sure,
that.
go
I
ahead.
mean, and going into my creative side, I love social media, but
Sure.
also it's hard at the same time. I dislike it in so many ways too. And I just feel like everybody is making it their highlight reel, and you need to think about it that way. And it's hard, especially I think for the younger generations. Luckily, I didn't have it in high school and college, but I see a lot of my friends and colleagues that do, and it can be detrimental because it's hard to, I feel like being able to keep up with the success is staying in your own lane. And it's very hard when you're being distracted and constantly getting outside stimulus from other people that
Comparing and all,
other
yeah.
people
Yeah.
didn't have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it definitely makes it a challenge.
I love what you said is about social media could be this highlight reel. They never show you the bloopers.
Nope.
Right.
You know, you know, they only manufacture, and then it's take after take after take, right? It just amazes me. And you go to dinner or something, and you just see the people who are just
They're not even enjoying
gazing
each other.
at themselves in the phone the whole time, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So that brings me to the question around: can success be toxic?
I think the idea of success, just similar to what we're talking about, just always chasing that. And what success looks like for me now at this age, I guess, is similar, having a little bit of free time, because I think as a law student, I just read so much. So I appreciate a day to be able to walk around, like walk the lakefront or something like
And
that.
I have to read a sign. I'm not reading anything today. This is my no read day.
Exactly. So I think it's toxic in a certain to the extent, or if it's a Saturday morning, going back to social media, this is my walking day, but then I get on Instagram and I have classmates that are in the library. So I'm like, oh, am I not a good enough student? Should I have spent my one free morning this week in the library? So I think the idea of what success looks like to other people, and then seeing that on social media, and then comparing it to where you are, that idea could be a little bit toxic.
That's where the toxic is coming in, is that comparison,
Right.
you know, to someone else. Jenny, you had a reaction to that.
Yeah, because I have observed and been involved in or subject to toxic work environments. And I don't think you can separate the individual from the organization, right? And so to the extent you've got individuals in there who might have blind ambition, they don't care about anybody else but themselves. And there's a range, right? It's
Yeah.
not,
Sure.
I've dealt with just complete narcissists.
But there are people who are just like,
they're just driven.
I am my
and
job.
I am it. And that can
Yeah.
create, just as someone who's in the leadership space, that's concerning to me because that's creating a culture that is toxic. And that's why we saw some of the Great Resignation, because there was an imbalance in the way that people were being treated. That people said, enough. I don't need this. And so that toxicity to me is in part because of this drive for success. And even, I'm going to go back and introduce another concept, but I read an interesting book called The Man Who Broke Capitalism, talking about Jack Welch 40 years ago, chasing shareholder value. And I just think there's a real misalignment with how companies have been run and what they're chasing and how they've subjected people and made people commodities.
Yeah.
And folks are starting to wake up and realize, I need to decide what success means to me.
Yes.
It's not about getting promoted.
Absolutely. I think I think everything you said is just so true. And I called it the great realization.
Yes.
That as you had that time to be at home on or between your Zoom calls, you're like, this isn't working. What I wanted to do?
No.
Am I on the path that I want to be on? Said differently, what have I given up to be here in this moment with this title, with this group, part of this conversation? Was it really, really, really worth it? Wow, it's a lot to cover here. We'll be back right after this quick break.
What's going on, Chicago? I'm your host, Darius Caffey of The Table on air, where we talk about what's new, what's happening, and what's what in Black LGBTQ culture.
Creating our own spaces is key to not having to feel like we constantly have to fight.
If you're authentic to yourself, you will never, ever lose.
Check us out on cantv.org, the CanTV app, and Channel 19 for some more conversations with our wonderful guests from around the city, both near and far.
Welcome back. We were talking about that success could be toxic. I'm wondering if success can be lonely. Because, success is, again, I've achieved it, I've done it, I've gotten it. And yet we have a lot of lonely people in the world today. Some are very popular and, we would say accomplished, maybe, but yet lonely. How is that? How could that be? How do they coexist? What do you think?
I think it can be. Adding on to what we were talking about earlier, I think social media too has been highlighting a lot of the hustle mentality being very attractive, and I think that could be a bit of a dangerous game just because you're really only seeing the highlights and the end result for a lot of those entrepreneurs, when ultimately, if you break it down simply, they were doing something that they felt was passionate for them. And they probably were very lonely and doing a lot of that on their own, day in, day out. Isolated, getting that work done. And then you don't see the nice things that come with that until years later.
If it shows up.
If it shows up.
Absolutely.
Right. Because there's a lot of people where they don't make it to that. And they do sacrifice a lot of those things and kind of maintain that lonely lifestyle, and sometimes it doesn't come to fruition. Doesn't necessarily mean that just because you put a lot of the work in, you're going to see the fruits of your labor.
Dollar for dollar. That's true. I'm still waiting on some stuff. So what do you think? Have you seen some lonely, quote unquote, successful?
Oh, for sure.
Types?
And some people who, we're in a mental health crisis right now too.
Yes.
That's quite real. And I think that's part of it. People are struggling with, how do I reconcile my life? How do I figure out who I am at home and at work and maybe in the community? And how do I find my truth and get grounded? Because the messages are so conflicted from one venue to another. So, I've watched people suffer, both in terms of family, because they're sacrificing.
Yeah.
People used to travel a lot. That's slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
You can be gone for weeks, and you miss. I was a single mom, and there were times when I just wanted to stop traveling, but I couldn't because I was a primary financial support for my son, and so. There were trade-offs. I didn't have as much of a social life, and nor did I seek it, frankly, because I kind of said, listen, I got to pick like 2 things that I could do. Raise him first.
Yeah.
And then,
Most important.
right. And then the work. And everybody at my job knew that he came first. But those challenges, the fact that you have to make some of those trade-offs is stressful, and you can end up feeling pretty alone in the whole game.
I was reading a book. It's called Strength to Strength, and it was talking about loneliness from the standpoint of the loneliest people were the spouses of workaholics.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, sure.
That it wasn't, maybe some professions you might think of, it was spouses of workaholics.
Do we even
to
hear that
talk
word
about
that
it.
much anymore?
Workaholics?
I don't.
I don't really.
I don't hear it.
We should hear it because
I mean, I think it's still happening.
Talk about a 24-hour news cycle. It's a 24-hour work cycle as
Right,
well. I
right.
mean, working from home and giving you all that flexibility. I could do a little now and I could
Right.
work well
I think
into
it's
the
just
night.
expected
And
now.
Right. Right. Like I even, find myself going, you know what? Something goes off. It's like, okay, pull back. Just stop. You talk about hustle. It's like the grind will be there. So just pull back a little bit. Is it ever too late to really pursue success? Is there a point in time where it's like, you've crossed that line, you're done, you can't get there? What do you think?
I don't think so. And in conversations similar to this, I always talk about my grandmother, who had daycares and stuff in her city, but didn't finish college until she was about 50 years old. Wow. And it was an important moment for me. I think I was about like 10 or 11, but I was just so happy to see her, even though she was in a class amongst so many other young people. I guess being in that environment, going from raising children, helping raise other people's children, and then going back to sit in a classroom with possibly kids she helped raise.
Sure.
And so that always motivated me and let me know that it's never too late to pursue certain goals.
Yeah.
And it just depends on what success, specifically to school, situations like that, she motivates me. And then in your personal life, as far as health and family time, I think it's never too late.
I think the thing about education, they don't tell you too old to go to school. As long as you can pay for it and keep up,
Right.
you can come, right? My grandmother got her GED in her 80s.
Wow.
I mean, it really does do something to you when you see, like, I was just complaining about that test I had to take. She got there, like, bless your heart. So that pursuit of happiness. So which order would you say is more prominent? Do you get happy and then you become successful, or you got to be successful before you can claim happiness? What do you think?
I wish that it was that you could be happy and then become successful, but just I guess the nature is being normalized that a lot of stress comes with a lot of different industries and stuff. And I know for me particularly, pursuing law and then working in government and politics beforehand, I think the happy days will come later.
They always look different.
Right. I get many happy days in between, but I'm waiting for my block. Somebody at a firm I worked at said he was joking, but it kind of depressed me a little bit. He was like, "Make sure you live up this last summer break because from now it's just a block of 30 years." And I was like, you made me want to switch careers. But that's what he said. And I was like, I guess you get many vacations, but the whole idea of having a good 3 months of no work and not having to worry about finishing assignments or a deadline, I guess that's kind of just how it goes.
You're like, well, I paid for that?
Right.
Any other thoughts? Happiness? Do you happy before success or success?
I think
be first?
in my early years, I thought I'll be happy when, it was just, I had all these sort of benchmarks, and after I achieved some and let go of others, I kind of decided, how about I find my own happiness? And how about because there was a point when I decided, I'm not trying to be a CEO of this company because I've seen what happens. I'm not going to play that game. I don't want to be like those people. So let me create my own game and reassess how I'm defining happiness for myself. And I've done that, I don't know, probably 10 times throughout my career. And I'm
I think
doing
that's
it
the
again.
average.
Well, it is.
And it's a privilege to be able to do so.
Well,
right?
because if you have confidence
Yes.
and you keep learning,
Yes.
right? It's not like you're letting go of anything. You're
Yes.
bringing everything with you that you've learned and
Yes.
gathered and appreciated
Yes.
to say, this is what I really want to do.
Yes.
And that might change again.
You said something earlier that I think is really even more relevant in this point. Not that it wasn't relevant before, it certainly was. But you said you have currency.
That's right.
Everything that you do, everything that you accomplish, everything that you sort of touch or influence or impact, I think gives you currency.
And I don't think we appreciate that. I think especially your generation,
Right,
if I may. I don't think you do. It's
Yeah.
like, pay attention to what you're being
What's happening.
exposed to.
Yeah.
Right? And take in all
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
the experiences, even though you might not have gotten that promotion or gotten that extra money.
So that brings me to another question. Is high achievement the primary marker of success?
I don't think so.
Can a low or moderate achieving person claim success? Say more.
I think so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when I was younger, I chased the titles. Now I would tell people, no, don't do that. Don't do that, because I don't think you necessarily need to be happy to start chasing the success and what you want. I think it's all about the little wins. So whatever the size of the goal is that you're trying to achieve, breaking it down to what can I do today during my routine that's going to get me 1% closer to that the next day, and then that adds up. And then once you start to check those things off, you will get that gratification of getting that done. And then that slowly adds up over time, and then I think that's when you become happier. But I think it's all about perspective and just trying to keep the more positive mindset when negative things are happening, asking yourself, what can you learn from this?
It's so wise. Hold on to that.
I will. I'm trying.
That's so wise. So, you know, a lot of people are juggling multiple priorities, you know, raising a child, working, trying to also stimulate hobbies or other interests, studying, reading frequently. And so is the constant juggle required for success? You ever had a moment where you weren't juggling?
I don't.
By the way, I consider you all successful. So
I think life is about juggling, and it's funny that you said that because it was a point. I used to play football, then I was going in college and just transitioning from being a football player to focusing on my major with political science. I was a little overwhelmed having an internship and just being a student and then other priorities. And I was complaining to my mom one day, and she was like, "Life is about juggling." So she said this the times of only being able to focus on one thing for an extended amount of time has probably passed. And so it's funny you ask that question because it's just a thing my mom says to me anytime. She's like, you got to juggle it. Like, you know, some things you can reasonably bring down, but for the most part, it's always going to be multiple things going on at once.
yeah, deciding which of those spinning plates am I willing to let put that down right now. So there's this thought of keeping first things first. What would you say are those first things to keep first or put first in the pursuit of happiness and success? What would you say?
My health.
Your health,
Yeah.
mental, physical,
All of it.
emotional, all of it.
Yeah. That's big. If you don't have that, you're nothing. And I was clear about that as a single mom because I mean I couldn't be there for him if I wasn't healthy. So I was very deliberate about that.
Putting your own mask on first,
That's
right?
it. Yeah, it's true.
True.
How about you, Tyler?
I agree with that. Like the physical, mental, huge. I try to get more sleep. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but I do notice I'm more productive when I get it. Sure. Yeah, just taking and like taking that time too to have a break and a reset, whether that's vacation for some people or just going and getting that latte that you're looking forward to that week. Spend that $7 on that matcha, whatever's gonna make you happy that week.
Absolutely.
And I guess just to switch it up from health, I would think that's a close first. But I would say just connection, whether that be with family, friends, just taking out time at least once or twice out your week, just have a conversation about nothing. Sit on the phone with someone for an hour, whether it be your grandmother, best friend. I think that's important. I was reading something recently that said, like, we cannot survive without connectedness.
It's true.
People,
It's true.
and whether you believe it or not, but people dying from broken hearts or things. It talked about
Loneliness, right?
so it's important. So even I guess as we go down this path to success, I try to always stay connected to people that just make me feel good and people that I know can help get my mind off all of these things that we're juggling constantly.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me of the show that you all may not remember it. Jenny, you might remember it. But Cheers.
Oh, yes.
Right? They come in and
know
say
that
their
one.
name, hey, Norm, you know, and it's just like, oh, I just feel so good right now just because I don't have to pretend with you at this moment.
We all need that.
Right? So that
Those people.
connection to who am I at the core? You know, who knew me when? You know, kind of thing. Well, I had this grind going on, and
You take all the masks
you
off.
take
and-
all the
yeah.
mask off, and you're just like, just chill, just exhale, just, you know, just be for a moment. It's
I
priceless.
meditate, and I've done it for years. And the first time I really did it, I was at work. I went into the bathroom. I had just back-to-back meetings, and I just sat there an extra 3 minutes. And I just started breathing.
Bathrooms are lovely, for
Right.
that.
I know it's an unusual place, but now I do it every morning
No,
in
you got
the
your
privacy of
privacy.
my home.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's important.
Well, this has been fantastic. We'll be right back after this message.
It's still honest, it's still thoughtful, and it's still definitely Chicago.
3, 2, 1.
Join me, Darius Hillman, for a brand new season of In the Arena, where we're bringing you compelling conversations with some of the most fascinating people our city has to offer. Right here on CanTV 19, on cantv.org, and the new CanTV Plus app.
You know, success alone can be a powerful motivator. Motivation to learn, grow, and earn more while being recognized for your efforts. Such a multifaceted perspective to success makes it more accessible and more subjective. Everyone has a different way of looking at the world and thus a different definition for success. Success is both in the eye of self as well as the eye of the beholder, and that's quite okay. In other words, it's an opinion based on one's own worldview. Agreeing on arbitrary markers of success is far less important than obtaining personal contentment. Success is, well, whatever you say it is. Fulfillment, purpose, and impact may or may not be a part of the equation. Your life, your call. Own it. I'd like to thank my wonderful guests, Jenny, Tyler, and Lee. Until next time, remember to live, laugh, and love